Hello everybody, welcome back to No Trailers Allowed, my movie and streaming show podcast where I do not watch trailers beforehand. I'm your host, Jersh. If you like this podcast, you can find more episodes on my website, superjersh.com. You can get this podcast early and ad-free by supporting me on patreon.com/superjersh. You can see the video version of this podcast by subscribing to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/superjersh. You can find me on social media on Twitter and Instagram @superjersh. If you want to email me to be a part of the show with your questions, comments, or suggestions, the email address is NoTrailersAllowed@gmail.com. I want to give a few Patreon shout-outs and welcome new patrons Mike, Swaglord, and Trish. Thank you, Patreon executive producers Mirrors, Trish, I Love Manatees, and Daryl. And thank you, legendary Patreon producer Zelbinian. A quick reminder, I do have a gaming YouTube channel, youtube.com/JershPlays. I stream live on Twitch @JershPlays as well. I also have a free public Discord in the show notes for those that are interested, and it's divided up amongst the different categories that I cover on the internet. On this episode, I'm going to talk about the Oscar-nominated film, The Power of the Dog. As I've said before, and I'll say again, I did not watch the trailer for this movie. I did not even read the movie description. I didn't know what the hell this movie was going to be about. I will briefly provide some spoiler-free thoughts, but then I'm going to jump quickly into spoilers. I became made aware of this movie when the Oscar nominations were announced, and I know that it was nominated for all kinds of awards, including Best Picture, and a lot of the actors and actresses were nominated for their performances as well. It put it on my radar. I found out it was on Netflix, so I made a note to check it out before the Oscars premiered, because I'm kind of hoping to do an Oscar prediction show here too. I will say at the top that a lot of this movie did not work for me. I was pretty bored throughout it. There were a couple of highlights that I'll talk about in spoilers, and I will specifically talk about some of the things that I did not like in spoilers. I do want to say in the spoiler-free section that I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was pretty good. I mean, it doesn't start off that way because of some kind of I guess some tropes and a little over seriousness in my opinion, but by the end of the movie, the performance did kind of win me over, and I liked what he did with it. That's all I want to say in the spoiler-free portion. I mean, do I recommend it? I mean, I will say in the spoiler section, at the top of the spoiler section, other movies that you should watch instead of this one if you have this kind of feel in your mind or wanting this kind of tone. Spoiler warning for The Power of the Dog, which is streaming on Netflix. It's been out for a few months now. It got nominated for a bunch of awards. So I'm assuming that if you're listening to this, you will have already watched it, or you don't care if I spoil it for you. So quickly at the top, like I promised, I would watch There Will Be Blood almost 100 times over before I would watch this movie again. There's also, I think maybe Unforgiven in the early 90s is like a Western that was really well made. There's just, I don't know, there's just something about this movie that feels like Oscar bait. And I won't say what other movie that it reminded me of, but I mean, again, full spoilers for the movie. I absolutely predicted that Phil, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, was some level of closeted based by his macho, almost overacted homophobia. You know what I mean? It almost telegraphed it. And maybe that was on purpose. I don't get the feeling that it was. It's a possibility. But I just felt like it was just a kind of a very predictable movie. It's a hard line to balance between like realistic and relatable and slow. And I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think anybody knows what the answer is. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Daniel Plainview staring out at the horizon for 10 minutes at a time in There Will Be Blood is almost more compelling than anything that I saw in this movie. The two or three things that I did like, that I actually enjoyed, was the buildup of tension between Phil and Rose, played by Kirsten Dunst, and the the music, in particular the music, how she's not a very good musician, but Jesse Plemons can't help but fucking push her into shit she doesn't want to do. Like, that was never addressed. Like, there was a lot of pieces for some really good, interesting choose sides, switch sides drama between these four characters, Phil, George, Rose, and Pete Jr., where alliances could have changed. Like, first Pete was aligned with his mom, but then Pete was actually aligned with Phil because they spent a lot of time outside of the ranch in the second half of the movie, and there could have been a rift there between mother and son, and that just was wasted. And Jesse Plemons, he's the whole reason they're here. He decided to marry her after knowing her for a few days and to take on her and her son onto their ranch, and he disappears for half of the movie. All this conflict and all this tension and passive aggressiveness is happening between his brother and his wife and stepchild, and he's just MIA. Who knows where the hell he is? And I get it. I think they kind of set him up to be this sort of non-confrontational character because of his kind of unwillingness to communicate with Phil, and then even when he did want to address Phil to talk about his cleanliness for the dinner. I feel like they grew up together. They're brothers. They've known each other forever. That's not the first time they've had that conversation. You know what I mean? They clearly have, Phil Benedict is kind of the ranch hand, get dirty, kill the animals, castrate them barehanded. He's that guy. And Jesse Plemons is probably more of the financier, the thinker, the idea man, the cleaner guy. And they should know and respect that about each other. And it shouldn't really be very adversarial, in my opinion. I feel like that conflict probably already happened in their relationship 100 times over. From a plot perspective, as far as things progressing, again, I feel like I say this all the time, but maybe that's how a lot of these movies are going lately, is it's very character focused and driven, where it's about these relationships and how they interact. It's not, the plot of the movie is ranch hand gets married. They come to the ranch. That's the plot of the movie. That's it. There's almost zero conflict. In fact, conflict is avoided because of the passive aggressiveness and the, refusal to address the elephant in the room on multiple occasions. I felt like, it was like such a compelling setup, and to just watch it meander and check my time and get bored, I don't know. And then there was, again, the opening shot of the movie, which is kind of the theme of the movie, which is butting heads. I felt like it was like these two cows or two bulls literally closed up on their eyes, butting heads against each other. And this whole movie is kind of about butting heads, or at least I think it thinks that it is, but it's actually about avoiding butting heads, because nobody actually goes ahead and butts heads. Cumberbatch whistles from the window. She drinks in silence. Plemons just goes missing and is nowhere to be found. And Peter is in his own world, dissecting animals and taking the insults and the homophobia in stride. Not getting defensive and not attacking them. Potentially, maybe we'll get to that. We'll get to the ending of the movie in a little bit, but. The cinematography was definitely beautiful, but how many times have we seen like a beautiful Western backdrop shot? The Hateful Eight, again, Unforgiven, again, There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men. I think I've never seen the show, but I've seen some commercials and teasers for it. Yellowstone. There's a lot of really beautiful, again, like Western backdrop footage, cinematography out there, and this was on par with some of the best, but it was not kind of anything new or unexpected. The performances were completely fine. I thought maybe Jesse Plemons was the weakest. I thought the kid was actually really strong and conflicted, changed and altered that his dad was gone, but wanting to try to help take care of his mom, but also want to be honest with himself and the things that he wants to pursue. I think he had mentioned that he made a friend that it was like, he calls me doctor and I call him, I don't remember what it was, but I feel like that friend is the friend that maybe helped him with anthrax. I don't. Yeah, I want to talk about the ending of the movie, but yeah, this isn't going to be a very long episode. And one of the things that I'm striving for in this kind of podcast movie review realm is to just say what I have to say and get out. If that's a 45-minute or hour episode, or if it's a 15 or 20-minute episode, I don't want to belabor any points. I just want to share my thoughts, get it off my chest, have a conversation with people that are interested in it, and move on to the next movie or streaming show, which I am actually going to be covering a streaming show or two here in the future. I know it's been mostly movies so far, but it's just about finding the time to commit to a streaming show. Anyway, I thought the music, again, was fine, completely serviceable to the material and the subject matter, but it just kind of fit and was expected. I just, simple acoustic minor chords that are in every kind of Western setting thing you can think of, I guess, I don't know. There was a point, yeah, it just almost felt like parody in some moments. You know what I mean? Like, the part, and I burst out laughing because I was reminded of this. The part where Peter is smoking with Phil in the last third of the movie and handing him the cigarette, and Phil's talking about how him and Bronco Henry, who we hear about 1,000 times in this movie, which again is the point, Phil idolized this man. There was a closeness there. I wonder how close they got. Well, we're going to find out. Phil told us. And when he was asking him, like, oh, he kept your body warm? Naked? Like, I immediately thought the movie Tropic Thunder from the early 2000s, directed by Ben Stiller, the opening of the movie had a lot of, like, fake trailers. And one of the fake trailers was a forbidden taboo love at a monastery between Robert Downey Jr. and Tobey Maguire. And I think it was called Satan's Alley or Satan's something or other. I feel like it was Satan's Alley. I did watch Nightmare Alley recently. Maybe that's not it, but this unrequited forbidden temptation love. I just immediately thought of that trailer, just started bursting out laughing.
Did you know that if you support me on patreon.com/superjersh, you can get this podcast early and ad-free? You probably didn't know that because you're listening to this promotion right now. Which means you also probably didn't know that there are dozens of hours of Patreon exclusive content over there, like full album music reactions and full movie watch-along commentaries. So head on over to patreon.com/superjersh to help the music and movie discussions continue. And for you gamers out there, don't forget to check out my gaming-focused YouTube channel, youtube.com/jershplays. Recently, I've been focusing on Guild Wars 2, Overwatch, and Fortnite, but there are also dozens of hours of gameplay videos for single-player games like Detroit Become Human and the Resident Evil series. Subscribe to that channel ASAP. It's free and helps a lot. Speaking of free, if Patreon isn't your thing, make sure you are liking the posts, commenting, sharing, rating, and reviewing, and subscribing everywhere that you can if you enjoy anything that I produce, music, movie, or gaming related. The only way it can continue is with your help. If this is all too much to remember and you want to see the different types of content I'm producing all in one place, just visit my website, superjersh.com.
Because again, I saw the movie going here almost from their very first interaction when he was Macho Man and Pete was like their waiter as they were, going across the land with the cattle. I just felt like it was really predictable. Two things weren't predictable. How Phil died, at least to me, I didn't see that coming. And again, I'm just speaking my own opinion. Maybe you didn't feel it was predictable at all, and that's fine. The Kirsten Dunst character, where she was going, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about her character arc, it was pretty strong. It just kind of devolved into alcoholism and illness, and I don't know. I guess timidness, which I mean that's fine to have timid characters. Yeah, I guess she kind of overcame it as I'm thinking about it by having the guts to sell the hides against Phil's wishes just to anger him. But what I don't understand I don't understand a few things about this movie. Like, number one, why did Phil all of a sudden change his mind about Pete? Is it because he was closeted and wanted to find a chance to get some time alone with him? And again, like, the book chapters, they didn't need to be there. Like, chapter 1, chapter 2, they like gave up on it halfway through the movie, by the way. I don't remember seeing like a chapter 5 or 6 or whatever. Like, the chapter markers didn't seem to do a whole lot or mean a whole lot or be additive to the movie, in my opinion. Like, I thought when we started seeing 1 and 2, I thought we were going to cover like different seasons on this ranch and like see how a year treats these people, not just like a few weeks. I don't know what the timetable was, but yeah, so the format there with the chapter stuff didn't really add anything to me, to the experience. But I'm just wondering, I don't know. I just feel like if you were that guy and you were interested in him, why not be nicer to him from the get-go? I feel like what the movie was trying, I feel like that turn came out of nowhere, but what the movie wants us to assume is that because Phil had an interest in Peter, he took a chance on him on a whim just to get time with him because he was finally living on the ranch. And I think the point was like for Phil to prove to himself that he wasn't interested in Peter because he had all these assumptions about what Peter couldn't do. And then as Peter began to show him his knowledge and his willpower and fortitude of learning to ride a horse, learning to tie a rope, the ability to just kill a rabbit and not think twice because he's a scientist and has dissected them in his room before. And Phil being completely surprised by all of this because he would assume this is like a macho masculine thing to be able to do. He wouldn't have assumed that Peter could do it. So it kind of backfired, and all of his stereotypes that he had about Pete kind of went away, and he kind of it let him kind of be honest about his feelings, I think. Yeah, I just felt like, and then again, I didn't understand why the Kirsten Dunst character, like Phil was an asshole. Benedict Cumberbatch played a great asshole in this movie. He was a piece of shit to that kid and a piece of shit to her. And I was, as a viewer, I was looking forward to his comeuppance, to the battle that was going to occur between the quote unquote good people, which was basically Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, and her son, and the towering Benedict Cumberbatch. Now, I will say, I brought up There Will Be Blood. I mean, none of this cat and mouse bullfighting, with this Old West backdrop comes close to There Will Be Blood. Like Daniel Plainview versus Eli and Paul Dano and There Will Be Blood, like blows this movie out of the water in that regard. And I felt like that was the sort of tone that they were going for, and the tension that they were going for, but it just never gets there. But yeah, I was looking forward to the conflicts. I was looking forward to the revelation, to the public revelation of Phil's orientation and having to deal with the consequences of potentially taking advantage of Pete. I don't know, they didn't say exactly how old Pete was, but I felt like there was a lot of potential for dramatic situations in the setup of the movie that were just abandoned or not explored, and just stayed slow and kind of the least compelling version of what the scenario and setup was. So to get to the end, so Phil, like, the whole movie you're thinking Kirsten Dunst is going to die of alcoholism. Like, she's the one that's going to go. And at the beginning of the movie, I thought it was going to be this conflict between brothers. Like, they very clearly, one is the ranch hand and one is the thinker and the money man and the clean man. And this wife and this kid is going to be this wedge between them and cause this fight. And Jesse Plemons is going to have to choose or whatever. But no, Jesse Plemons' character is a total afterthought, has nothing to do with it. He brought them to the ranch, and then the conflict and the story of the ranch is Kirsten Dunst and her son Peter and Benedict Cumberbatch, and Jesse Plemons might as well not even be there. But so as she devolves into alcoholism and kind of drinking her emotions because she's too afraid to stand up to Phil because of how towering he is, you think for sure that she's the one that's going to die. And then even when Jesse, all the way up until when they're getting the casket, I'm like, oh shit, she finally died. Then they reveal that it's Phil. Like, he died off camera all of a sudden because of anthrax. Like, what? Out of nowhere? And again, I feel like maybe the cigarette, my guess is that the cigarette that Pete was smoking with him, he laced that one with anthrax, but he also took a puff of it. but in the opening line of the movie is like, when my dad died, I swore I would take care of my mom. And so Peter, I felt like the way that the movie opened and the way that the movie ended, it for sure is leading you down the path of Peter poisoned Phil with anthrax. No matter how nice he was to him, he was mean to him first, and his mom hated him, and Pete loves his mom more than he would ever love Phil. Now, I think the filmmakers and storytellers would probably say, it's open to interpretation. But I honestly would have I would have preferred a more finality or a more specific answer one way or another, because it's a more fully formed dramatic decision, in my opinion. And so Phil dies of anthrax, and that's the end of the movie. He died of anthrax. That's it, Yeah, I just was like, I don't know. Yeah, it just wasn't there for me. The performances were good. The cinematography was fine. It just didn't feel like anything new, and I wasn't particularly surprised along the journey. Except for the fact that Kirsten Dunst lived. She made it all the way to the end. I thought for sure she was a goner. So yeah, I don't know. I probably will not ever think about this movie again. Like the 2 or 3 moments that there finally got to be some tension and some conflict, where Kirsten Dunst was trying to play the piano and Benedict is playing the banjo, and some wide shots showing him actually playing the notes. So I feel like he actually learned the banjo for that part. I thought that was really fun. I thought that was like more compelling and intense cringe drama than like his big explosive moment at the end when he yells about the hides being sold. Yeah, Jesse Plemons, like, just not even for a second thinking about what Kirsten Dunst wants, or like asking, like, just like, no, play for us, play the piano. Yeah, so there were, very few single digit bright moments between Benedict and Kirsten. But otherwise, I just was like, I saw this coming a mile away, and there was not a ton of plot twists or a lot of increased conflict or drama that made it feel like I don't understand the accolades. I really don't. The last thing that I wanted to say was, the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm wondering, why the fuck is it called The Power of the Dog? This doesn't make any sense at all. And halfway through the movie, to myself, I said, it's going to be somebody's bullshit tattoo that doesn't fucking matter. That's going to that it doesn't matter to the actual movie. There's going to be some extra layer thematic tie to the movie, but it's not. Because I thought, like, when in the opening of the movie, when I get this, like, I don't know, I guess I took it too literal. Why don't I learn what a metaphor is? But the power of the dog, I thought something to do with dogs was going to happen in this fucking movie. Like, when the boy finally started playing with the dog, I was like, oh my God, that's where the power is going to come from. Or it's going to something that dog is going to he's going to get jealous of his dog's relationship with Pete, and he's going to want to kill him instead, or something. Oh man, we're finally going to get some drama and some conflict. And no, it was just it was a multiple character study piece with such a wonderful setup for ways to create conflict and fights, and I just was waiting for knockout dragouts about, and just having to answer for your decisions, for Phil and Jesse Plemons to argue over, you brought this, our lives were fine before, why did you bring this family into our house and ruin everything, to the mom and kid conflicting over his comb attachment and character trait. Like the character work was good. It just didn't go towards anything meaningful or memorable for me. I feel like I could like read a blurb about what happens in this movie and it would be just as satisfying. And then I could like YouTube the clip of Benedict laughing while he's playing the banjo way better than Kirsten Dunst can play the piano. And that would be really good enough for me. So I don't know. And again, like, I had zero expectations. I just knew it was nominated for a lot of stuff. But I didn't go into it thinking this better be the best movie I've ever seen. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be about. I just wanted to enjoy it. And, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It was fine. I'm not going to remember really anything about it except Benedict being an asshole while she's trying to play piano. So I'm curious what the general opinions are out there. Now that I've recorded this, I'll see what the other reviewers are saying, because I try to avoid that and preserve my own thoughts for myself. But I mean, if people come out of the gate saying like, best movie of the year, best movie ever made, like, I don't know, man, that's just not where I'm at. But yeah, so I'm glad that I watched it. I'm trying to force myself to keep up on current events and current movies. And I'm not going to like every movie that I watch. But if I liked every movie that I watched, then you would have no, reason to trust me or believe me when I say I do like something if I never didn't like a movie. So at least that's my opinion and what I think about when I'm being honest. So yeah, not a lot else to say about it other than it was fine. There Will Be Blood is a lot better. I would watch that movie over this one if you've never seen it. So yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Let me know what you thought about this movie. Email me at NoTrailersAllowed@gmail.com. I want to know what people out there liked the movie, didn't like it. Do you agree with some of my criticisms? Did I miss something? Do I, if it is a great film, maybe tell me why you think so. I'm always open to other people's opinions. I would appreciate it. If you like this podcast and you want to find more, you can visit my website, superjersh.com. If you want to get this podcast early and ad-free, you can support me on patreon.com/superjersh. The video version of this podcast is available on youtube.com/superjersh. You can follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram @superjersh. And don't forget, I do have a gaming channel as well. If you're a video gamer out there, YouTube and Twitch are both @JershPlays. I also have a free Discord community. I've got a link for that in the show notes of this podcast. We also are on Spotify and iTunes. If you're listening there, please give me a 5-star rating, give me a review. The internet is a very crowded place. As always, thank you for watching or listening. Until next time.